Okay, so you can see here, we're looking at now Trent, who's a 29-year-old male who's come to our fitness facility. He's done an APSS, which we'll look at in just a second as well. During the initial consultation, Trent reveals to you that his primary goal is to increase his fitness so he can get healthier and have stamina for when he goes mountain bike riding. So now we have a very specific sort of almost sport-oriented goal from here, okay? So now what we need to do is open up Trent's APSS form. Now, have you
I've
opened
already
that?
seen it. Yeah, I already seen it.
Okay, so you've got that there. Okay,
Yep.
so let's open that up and take a look at it, because I think it's really important that we take a look and sort of understand what we're doing here, okay? So you can see here, there's 3 stages to an APSS form, okay? The first stage is what we call the compulsory stage. So this is where they have to fill in all these questions. They're really basic yes/no questions, okay?
Yep.
They ask things about heart conditions, chest pain, dizziness, asthma, diabetes, diagnosed muscle, bone, or joint problems, and any other medical conditions, okay? So this is basically the yes/no. Now, if your client ticks yes to any of these, straight away they need to get cleared to begin an exercise program.
Okay.
So anything such as like unexplained pains in your chest, any sort of heart condition, and all that sort of stuff, okay? So what does it mean when they say they need to get cleared to begin a program?
They'd have to go to the doctors and let them know their condition.
Yeah, exactly right. So they're going to have to go see their GP, and their GP just needs to write a letter, and the letter just basically says, I've seen John Smith. John Smith suffers from X, but he's cleared. You know, they usually say he's cleared to be in exercise program at a moderate intensity. Now, it's a massive pain in the butt for a lot of people, especially if they've got these like borderline things and they're quite healthy except for this one thing. But it does cover your butt, right? So it is important, because if something does happen and they weren't cleared by the doctor and they were training with you, you know, that's where bad stuff happens, okay?
Yeah.
So that's the first stage. So the first stage is basic yes/no stuff, okay? Stage 2 is where we start to assess their risk factors, okay? So let's go ahead here and let's assess his risk factors. So the first thing we look at is his age. So how old is he?
29.
29. So is that a risk factor? Look at the next column.
No.
No. So it's a risk factor if you're over the age of 45 or over the age of 55. Just being for females, just being.
So sorry, if it is a risk, you just do +1 in the risk.
You would write kind of +1 in that. Now you can't write on this because it's a PDF file, but just let's just keep mental notes. Now, one thing that jumps out to me, a lot of people ask me is, see how why is it 45 for men and 55 for women?
Yeah, what?
Could you give me any idea why?
Because they're men. I don't know.
Typically, men are in. If we had to generalize, and I hate generalizing, typically men suffer from more medical conditions. They suffer them more severely. They die at an earlier age. Women have longer.
That's so interesting.
Women have longer life expectancies than men by about 4.5 years.
Yeah, right.
On average, women live about 4.5 years longer than men. So for that reason, the risk factors are at a younger age for men and an older age for women. Not to say that a woman can't have a heart attack at 45, but it becomes a risk factor for a man at an earlier age, okay? All right, the next one we look at is your family history, okay? Now, as you can see here, it's your immediate family, your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your son, or your daughter, right? So we're not talking about your second cousin, your third cousin, even really like your grandparents. It's just your first relations. Okay. So we want to know, do any of them have any issues with heart disease, stroke, heart attack, you know, all that sort of stuff, okay? Because that's a risk factor, because it means it's genetics, right? So it runs in the family. Do you have any genetic stuff in your family?
No, all good.
Lucky, beautiful, okay?
Yeah.
So we look at that. So we look at who has it, and we also look at what age were they diagnosed with it. And as you can see here, if it was a man less than 55 or a woman less than 65, it is one risk factor, okay? Now, the reason why it's less than that age is that if your dad got diagnosed with heart disease at 80, that's not really a risk factor. That's more like just old age. You know what I mean?
Okay, I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, but if your dad got diagnosed with heart disease at 50, well, that's really young, right? So that's a risk factor for you, becomes a risk for you. Because it's more of a genetic thing as opposed to an old age thing. That makes sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so we always look at those family history, okay? So you fill it in. So far, no risk factors. The next one, Do you smoke cigarettes daily or weekly? And have you quit smoking in the last 6 months? So he ticked yes, and he quit
But
5
it
months
is.
ago. Yeah, so that's one risk factor. So if you have smoked within the last 6 years, or so if you smoke regularly or given up, regularly is like, oh man, I don't know what regularly is. Like, is one social cigarette every time you drink regularly? I don't know. But, you know, I always tend to say if you're the type of person that buys cigarettes, you smoke regularly. If you're the type of person that bums cigarettes off someone else, you're not really a regular smoker. You know what I mean? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So he's got one risk factor. So he's a +1 there. Okay? All right. So the next one is we look at how much exercise are you currently doing? All right? So as you can see, he's exercising vigorously 3 times a week, but he's only exercising for 60 minutes total. All right. Now, the health guidelines, Australian health guidelines say you should exercise for at least 150 minutes per week, which is 2.5 hours a week, which should be attainable for most people. It's like half an hour a day, 5 days a week, right?
Okay.
So is that a risk factor for him?
Well, it's more than 150 minutes a week, isn't it?
No, because he's
it's not.
It's not 3 times 60. It's 3 sessions a week, but the total minutes per week is 60. That's what throws a lot of people off. Do you see what I mean? So he might be doing only three 20-minute sessions a week, right? So he's training 3 times a week, but the total minutes per week is only 60.
Oh, right. Okay, I didn't look at that. I just assumed.
So I know it's a bit tricky, all right? Now, as you can see there on the second column, it says vigorous physical activities weighted times 2. So every minute of hard exercise is worth 2 minutes of normal exercise.
Okay.
But even then, 60 times 2 is what, 120?
Yeah.
So he doesn't get to 150. So that's another risk factor. So he's at 2 right now, okay? So his risk factors now are cigarette smoking, and he doesn't do enough exercise.
Okay.
So we're at 2. Now, the next one is BMI. Do you know what BMI is?
I've heard about it, and I forget the formula every time.
Yeah. I mean, you can use the formula online. It's basically just a relationship between your height and your weight, right? So they're saying at a normal height, there is a normal weight range that you should be, okay? So if you have a look at his BMI there with his height and his weight, it's 26.2.
So he's fine.
He's fine, yeah. As long as if it's 30 or over, we consider that a risk factor. Do you know what some of the problems are with BMI, Jamie?
You're probably more overweight than for your height, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What are some of the problems with using BMI though? Like if you use like imagine like a rugby league team.
Okay. So if I'm a sports player and I like say you're a rugby union player and you're like this nuggety little prop and you're tiny but you weigh a lot, I feel like that's kind of
it'll say that your BMI is too high, even though it could all be muscle, right?
Yeah.
So the big thing with BMI is it doesn't take into account muscle or fat. Okay, so you can see there, and you can see the last 3, I think, as in I can't see my screen anymore.
Yeah, they're all no.
It's just all no's, okay? So we can go in and we can see now how many risk factors does he have?
So that was 2, wasn't it?
He has 2 risk factors. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, I'm going to do this a different way. I'm going to pick this up on my phone just quickly. I don't want to stop again.
No, that's all
right. Just a second. Of course, this had to happen tonight. Okay, so we've got he's got 2 risk factors. Okay, so now we just know that. Now let's go back to the assessment 1C. Okay, and let's look at the questions. Okay, so knowing everything that we've done, identify the list of the equipments or tools required to successfully complete stage 2 of the exercise pre-screening tool. Okay, so what things would you need if you were to run that stage 2 with a client? What things would you need to have in order to perform that correctly?
Probably just like a pen and paper.
So pen and paper, yep. Now there are a few other things that you need to measure. You need to measure their height.
Oh, so like a weight and then like a...
So you might need a scale and you might need some sort of tape measure or sort of height measurement sort of thing. I can't remember what they're called, like stadiometers or something. But something like that. Yep.
Yep. Okay, I'll write that down.
Yeah. So you'll need all of those things there. Okay.
Could I just say like a measure, like a tape measure?
Yeah. Tape measure. Yeah. Okay, so we know that he's got 2 risk factors. All right.
Mhm.
So that's good. So we're going to hold on to that information because we'll use that further on down the track. So that's question 1. Okay. Question 2, this is going to take a little while, is now assuming that Trent did say in stage 1 of his pre-exercise screening form that he experiences dizziness during activity, you'll be required to write a referral to a medical professional for clearance to undertake fitness testing. Okay. So now what we're going to need to do is we need to write a referral letter to a medical professional regarding Trent's results, with the assumption that he said yes to question 3 in stage 1. Okay, so this is the first time that you're going to do this. So I'm going to help you out here, okay? After we do 1 today, what I suggest you do, right, is you copy and paste this letter, right? And you save it on your computer somewhere as like a template for a referral letter, because when we do referral letters in the future, you can copy and paste this template and then just change all the information on there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the first thing that we need to do, so we need to write this and structure this as an actual letter. Okay. So let's just make up a doctor's name. So we might write at the top of the letter, we might write, Dr. John Smith, ABC Medical Center, Sydney. Okay. Let's just say, okay. Okay. So let's think about this. So the first sentence might be like, "Hi, Dr. Smith," right? And then you would introduce yourself. My name is, Jamie Lee, and I am a personal trainer at XYZ Fitness Center. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Right? So the first sentence is you kind of introducing yourself.
Yep.
So I'm really going to walk you through this first one, okay?
Yeah, okay.
You can, a lot of like the fitness center stuff doesn't matter. That's all made up, right?
Yeah, I'm just making it up. Yeah. So I just said, "Hi, Dr. Smith. My name is Jamie Lee Price, and I'm a trainer at the Giants Gym Centre."
Perfect. Okay. Then the next thing you need to do, so you've introduced yourself, you need to introduce the client. Okay. So you would say something like, "I would like to refer to you, my client, Trent." And then after Trent, what's important is I want you to include his date of birth. Okay. So in brackets. So you might write whatever his date of birth is there. Okay.
Why do you have to do that?
Now, I'll tell you why. Because what happens is that with a lot of medical centers and doctors and allied health professionals, when they look up people based upon their date of birth, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got 2 Trents or 2 people of the same name, if you include their date of birth, then they know which person's file that they do. So that's just a practice that I do. And I think it's just important to include their date of birth every time you sort of write a referral letter. Okay. It's kind of good practice. Okay.
So I just wrote, "I would like to refer to you, my client, Trent," with in brackets his date of birth.
Yep. And then you would write, something like, "Who has come to me for screening for screening to begin an exercise program." Yep. So that might be the first paragraph. Yeah. Okay. So that would be the first paragraph. Now, the second paragraph is now what we need to talk about is what happened when he came to you to fill in this form. Okay. You would write something like, "Upon completing the screening form, Trent has indicated that he experiences dizziness during physical activity." And then you would write something like, "Therefore," you would write, "Therefore, I'm requesting you provide clearance for him before he can begin his exercise program." Something along those lines, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like, referring Trent.
I just said, "Upon completing the screening form, Trent has indicated that he has experienced dizziness whilst participating in physical activity. Therefore, I'm requesting you to..." To provide clearance for him to begin his training.
Exactly. Yeah. Provide a medical clearance for him to begin an exercise program or something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so that would be the second paragraph. Now there needs to be one more paragraph. Okay. Now in this third paragraph, you would include what you plan on doing with your exercise with him. So what are some of your aims, your programming? So take a look back at his goals, right? And then write a paragraph saying, Trent plans on training with me, and you can make this up. Trent plans on training with me 3 times a week for 45 minutes. undertaking a cardiovascular fitness-based program to improve his fitness for his mountain biking or something like that, So just give a general idea of what you have planned for him so that the doctor would know, how to screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just run that paragraph through to me once you're done with it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I just said Trent and I have discussed that he would love to train 3 to 4 times a week, doing cardiovascular training to improve and maintain his fitness to help his mountain biking.
Perfect. Okay. And then the last paragraph, you just need to basically sign off, thanks in advance. I look forward to hearing from you. Please contact me if you've got any more, if you need any more information, then just sign off,
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So does that make sense for a referral letter? Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. And I think, they can get a bit more technical once the client gets a bit more technical, but this is a very basic sort of version. As you can see, what you've done is you've introduced yourself, you've introduced the client, you've explained what happened to cause the need for him to go see the doctor, and then you've explained what your goals are with this client in terms of your programming. So, and then you just sign off. So professional, professional tone, contains all the important information, structured and formatted well, and all that sort of stuff. Okay.
Cool.
Great. All righty. So does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's that. So what you can do now, so what I do suggest you do, copy and paste that, put that in another Word document, right? And then just call that Word document like referral letter template. Because what you can do is then you can just drop that in, change all the information on it, and then it'll take you 2 minutes to write a referral letter as opposed to like 15 every time,
Yeah, that's true.
So it might be just something handy to do later on, okay? All right, so let's move on. We've only got 2 more questions left today, okay? So the next one is explain why it is important to conduct a pre-exercising screening assessment and fitness appraisal in a safe and timely manner. Why is it important to do this quickly? Yeah?
Sorry, hold on. Explain why it is important.
So like, for example, why do we do this screening form when they first walk in before they begin an exercise program?
Basically, so you can the risk or their health conditions before they enter the gym, so you won't have any problems.
Exactly. Yeah. So you would write your answer somewhere along those lines, a couple of sentences here. Yeah. So that it's important to do this, in a safe and timely manner, so you can accurately understand the client's risk, their limitations, which also protects you from a legal perspective in case the client needs to get cleared prior to beginning a program or something like that. Yeah. So just talk about the fact that you need to understand the risks. You need to do it to cover yourself legally.
Yeah.
Just in case anything should happen, you should, basically you should understand sort of the level that the person is at.
I just wrote, this is important to identify. This is important to identify the risk level of a client's health and well-being to get a better understanding of what they can and can't do. This also allows you to cover yourself legally. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. Yep, that's great.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about, as long as the answer includes something about assessing risk factors. Yep. And it includes about legal, like covering yourself legally in case anything happens. Yep.
Okay.
Then that's important. Okay. Okay. So the last question here, pretty simple. Okay. So review Trent's goals, and then I want you to prioritize these 3 service options. Okay. So you would just list the order of preference 1, 2, 3, and it kind of explain each of them and why you put them in the certain order. Okay. So what would you say would be?
I'd probably say 1 is spin class.
Yep. And why would you say that?
Because that's kind of like your cardiovascular session, and he obviously wants to do bike riding. So
the 2 things that I would do. So I would write 1. So I would list that 1, and I would write spin. I would write a bullet point and say the spin class is the most important service as it improves cardiovascular fitness and is also sports specific to his goal. Yeah, you understand the concept of sports specific, right? So yeah, It works exactly on what he wants to do. Gets him on, similar sort of, training modality to what he's trying to do.
Then I'd probably go. Oh, I'd definitely go personal training session.
Okay, yep. You can put that as second order, yep. And why might that be useful?
Just so he is getting the training specifically like for what he needs.
So you could do like personal training session would be useful as a service to give him specific, say, strengthening exercises to support his mountain bike riding, such as, and you could write like, step ups and lunges and squats and deadlifts, because if he had a personal trainer that maybe wrote a program that focused on his lower body strength, that would be really useful. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So try and be specific there. Try and go, the personal trainer could provide some lower body strengthening exercises to help him get stronger on the bike,
Yeah.
And maybe throw some examples in there.
Lower body. And then the last one will be stretching classes.
Yeah, and I mean they're still useful, but they're probably just the third most important one. So stretching important to for recovery, to reduce the risk of injury, and to make sure he doesn't get tight, from exercise, which can affect his performance on the bike or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wrote spin classes is number one, as it in sorry, that was my house.
Okay.
Spin class is number one as it improves his cardiovascular system and is specific training to what he needs help with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Personal training session is specific for his training session as he needs to strengthen his lower body more than upper.
Yep. And then for example, and then just write EG for example, and then throw in 2 or 3 exercises that might help him,
Yeah.
Yeah, squats, lunges, step ups, deadlifts, that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then you could write, 3, and then you could write the stretching session may be used for, recovery or injury prevention.
Yeah. And then, I wrote stretching classes are important for recovery and reduces the chances of injury.
Yeah, perfect. Great. That all sounds good. Yeah, happy with that as well. Yeah, we actually got through that really quickly today. I'm sorry we had some some sort of Zoom glitches and stuff. Do you have any questions about any of that sort of so far?
No, it's all pretty straightforward at the moment.
Yeah, it will get, as we get through this. So module 1's all about sort of screening clients. Module 2 goes into like writing programs. Okay, so we do a lot of program writing in module 2. Module 3, it goes into a lot of like training clients with different types of needs. So we do a lot of like special conditions, like training clients with heart needs, etc. Module 4 is anatomy and physiology, and that's usually the toughest one for most people.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably what I'll struggle with.
That's kind of like learning a new language. So we do that one quite slow. And we also, I'd really just focus on the things I think you need to know, because, you won't remember all 206 bones and all the muscles, right? But we want to focus on at least understanding all the basic ones and what they do. Yeah. And then workshop 5 is all about sort of risk assessment and understanding risk and all that. So we'll just keep on moving on, okay? Awesome. Cool. All righty. Well, look, that's it. That's